Welcome back to the Music Industry Podcast with Maddie and Alex. Today we're joined with Anya Du Sauzay from Parlophone, Head of Marketing. We actually met, 2 years ago now at Psycho?
Psycho, yeah.
I feel like it was longer than that. I feel like
Yeah.
it might have been about 3 years.
Yeah, we were in like the early stages of Burstimo, so it's quite a while ago. And were you doing digital marketing there as well?
Yeah, so I was head of digital marketing at Psycho. I've been at Psycho for 6.5 years, so I think when we met, I would have been head of digital.
It's always been digital, it looks like, always marketing side of things.
With me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been. So I've been in the music industry for, I guess, 8 years now. But prior to that, I was working in kind of PR and marketing, but brand side, like kind of quite big kind of global PR agencies working on kind of corporate brands, consumer brands. So yeah, I made the switch when I realised that wasn't for me and moved into music. And
you worked with some huge names like Gorillaz, Coldplay.
Yeah,
some big names in your time.
Yeah. It's a great roster at Parlophone. I mean, so diverse. Kano, Coldplay, Stereophonics, Tones and I, as you said, new artists like Ashniko, Simba, artists who are having kind of big hits right now. Really great international roster. Really great kind of UK repertoire. I think that's kind of what Parlophone, for me anyway, it's iconically a British label. Obviously, they have the Beatles, which is amazing for any label to kind of have that. So I think what Parlophone for me represents now, and a reason why I wanted to work with them is because for me they represent what the British music scene looks like right now, which is everything from kind of grime, UK rap to big kind of anthemic artists like Coldplay and everything in between. So yeah. Love Parlophone.
And in digital marketing, you have to currently adapt as well. If you're working with so many genres, you probably have to adapt quite a bit as well. Do you find that you're adapting your marketing techniques to these different genres, and because everything's changing so drastically at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely have to. I think you can't be a good marketeer or a kind of a digital marketeer. Although I think the two are the same. I don't think you can be a marketeer in music without being digitally savvy and understanding kind of social media.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you absolutely have to. And I think it's not as hard as people may think,
Don't tell them that.
well, no, of course it is. I mean, no, breaking artists that's a whole different ballgame. But in terms of understanding an audience, I mean, we've got a wealth of, data and insights and at our fingertips. So, to get under the skin of an Iron Maiden a fan, sorry, not artist, to get under the skin of an Iron Maiden fan, we have the information and the insights there to be able to do that. I mean, you're never going to have as rich data as, speaking to someone directly and really kind of getting in with a fan of that artist. But, we're lucky enough to have teams and data insights and analytics to be able to tell us, what does an Iron Maiden fan want versus a Coldplay fan versus, a grime music fan or a UK R&B music fan want. So yeah, we have to use those insights and kind of really, really adapt our marketing strategies around that.
Is there a difference in approach between like an established artist with an established audience versus your approach when they're a development artist and just emerging?
I mean, I think so. I think again with kind of an established artist, I guess you've had enough time, you've had enough album campaigns, streaming campaigns, fan engagement campaigns to understand, I guess, what that audience react well to and, what resonates and what doesn't. So you've got that you've got that at your fingertips to be able to say, okay, this is how we'll adapt our strategy based on what worked last time. There's always going to be new platforms and kind of new trends that you can obviously kind of integrate into that campaign. But I think you have to kind of use the information that you have as to what worked last time to be able to inform what you do next time. But I think with a developing artist or kind of a newly signed artist, again, I think you have to look more to the artist themselves who, may have kind of been doing it themselves. They've done it DIY. They've started from the kind of ground up. They'll understand better than we can understand what's got them to the point that they've got to, what's got them the recognition that's brought the label to their door. I think it's really important that marketeers in labels don't think that they kind of know it all and really use the audience and the artist to kind of help inform the strategies that we use to kind of then market their music and sell records and drive streaming and all that.
Do you think you have to basically be on all platforms at that point when they're in the early stages, because you don't exactly know, you don't have the data to see where they're performing best? So it's like put them on YouTube, put them on Snapchat, put them on TikTok, or do you think it's like look at the artist, see where they would best
Yeah,
apply
I
those
don't think
things?
so. I think again, it really. I sound like a stuck record, but it really depends on the artist. Like, I wouldn't recommend that every artist be on Snap or every artist be on TikTok because it may be right later down the line, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be right at the start.
Yeah.
And often, you might be starting from scratch. Is it going to be beneficial to have a couple of hundred TikTok followers and you're kind of putting out content and it's reaching nobody? Probably not. I think it's also about what the artist is comfortable with, because I think one thing that I guess a lot of labels do naturally, and I guess that's kind of what labels are set up to do, but it's to provide a kind of a support network for that artist. But ultimately, the selling point is the artists themselves. And I think we've got to be careful not to try and kind of build too much around the artist that actually then just dilutes the essence of who that artist is and their voice and their message. So if you're setting them up on every platform, realistically knowing that they're not going to be able to maintain those or really have any kind of input into them, I think you have to question why you're doing it. So I'd prefer that, if I had an artist that loved TikTok and they were posting 10 times a day, I'd prefer that they just focused on TikTok and kind of left Instagram, like left, not as in kind of just like, totally sacked it off, but just kind of let somebody else manage that. You focus on what you're good at. We won't try and pull you in too many different directions, because I ultimately don't think that that's really going to benefit their fans or the artists themselves. So.
How important is it to define their brand that you mentioned in their story before going out to social media platforms? Or do you go out to the social media platforms first and then like develop the brand as you go? So do you have a sit down before you launch them?
I don't think I don't think it really works like that anymore, or in my experience anyway. I guess in some instances maybe it has, maybe with, back in the day with an X Factor artist who doesn't really have kind of an artist brand identity yet. Maybe there would have been slightly kind of more contrived conversations like that. But I think now a lot of these artists, they're defining that themselves. That they're defining that with their fans. They kind of know what is at the heart of what they do, how they started, what their story is, what their fans love, and then they kind of go away and develop that out, and then we just help amplify that. I think that's what's really important, and I think I think it would be far too kind of contrived and manufactured to do it the other way. And I think as well, again, like I always end up talking a lot about TikTok just because, I mean, it's just so interesting because I think it's changed the music industry. But I also think what it's done is, because of the way that the algorithm works and how users are kind of creating content on the platform, like the sweet spot is posting, 10 times a day or whatever, which no other social media platform would recommend. But it kind of means that you can do things wrong, and it kind of
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So you don't have to worry that, oh my God, like how many likes did I get? What's the engagement? Because you posted
ego,
6 times. Yeah, it's ego.
Yeah, we found that the growth on it has been super fast as well. So
Yeah.
if you look at Instagram, YouTube, you have to dedicate so much time.
Yeah.
But we worked with an artist and we did a full TikTok strategy for them because she was just naturally good at content.
Yeah.
And how long did it take Sophie to get 100,000 followers? Like 3 weeks?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like she just went.
Yeah.
And it was perfect proof of like she created a brand, she created a style that worked for her. And she just naturally put out videos like 4 a day.
Yeah.
Didn't take too much effort. And I think on Instagram and YouTube, that's just not possible.
But do you know what, actually, and this is quite interesting. So Instagram have just announced that that the feature that kind of has been talked about for a while is now kind of coming into play, is hiding the likes.
Yeah.
So you can now
it took them
choose.
a long
They
time.
did it
Yeah.
in like beta, didn't they, for a
Did
little
it in
while?
beta, but it's now rolling out kind of globally, and I think that's quite interesting because the thing about Instagram, it was about the likes. That was how you judge the success, and the engagement was how many likes does this post get. But now that they're giving users the option to remove it, it kind of changes. It changes the cultural currency of that platform, and maybe it. I mean, they're always trying to kind of move in a similar way to TikTok now. They're kind of with Reels and some of their other formats. But I think that's quite an interesting one because I think they're trying to encourage people to use it in a more dynamic way and worry less about, okay, I've posted once today, it's got this many likes, I can't post again because it will, it will impact, how many people see it on their feed, etc. So I think I think there feels like there's a shift in that direction.
Yeah, well, we're seeing, I mean, a lot more people just posting rawer content.
Yeah.
Like it's in at the moment to do the photo dumps where you
Yeah.
just literally, it's no high quality photos. And I think that's definitely going in that, I mean, it's done a full 180.
Yeah.
It went from people using it as a bit of a portfolio of their best photos
Yeah.
to now showing their worst. Do you think that's a good thing? Makes it easier for artists?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lower barrier to entry, so you have to kind of worry less about it. I think, yeah, there were so many artists that I worked with, and it's not to their detriment, but it was a trend. It was these curated feeds, really overthinking it. Every post we had to discuss in a lot of detail, or you had to work with some incredible graphic designers to create these feeds that when you look at it as a whole, it all feeds into each other, and it's a lot of work and often not much reward for that, because ultimately I don't really know what you gain from it, apart from people are looking at your feed kind of as a holistic 12 squares, that it looks pretty, but other than that I'm not really sure what the benefit was. But it feels like now, as you say, these photo dumps and the other ways that kind of people are using the platform, feels like you're getting a lot of more rich content. So yeah, it's interesting.
It's interesting also you say that about the difference in trends. Like, how has things changed in the last, say, 3 years now with TikTok, but also the artist's mentality towards those social medias? So you say that, for example, artists, they're very perfectionists as people. They want everything to look perfect when you go and discover that artist. However, we scroll Instagram, you don't see that holistic side of things. How has things changed in those 5 years?
Well, I mean, and again, I don't think I'm kind of giving away any secrets here, but I still think that artists do really think about that. It may look kind of like it's just a photo dump, but it's been thought out, because I think that's the nature of an artist, that they think of, their music is their identity, but also social media now is their identity too. But I think it's good that artists are starting to understand those trends more, and and kind of being part of it. And I think that's really important as part of an artist's journey, to kind of not think, okay, well, I still want to look really polished, and so I'm not going to do what other people are doing. I like the fact that it's being dictated, maybe not by them, but by the users themselves. And again, that's why I think TikTok is so great, because it really it's flipped everything on its head, because it's totally about what the audience, that they've defined essentially what the TikTok strategy is. They tell you what music works. Like, it doesn't matter about charts or playlisting or whatever. It's about what resonates on the platform.
No gatekeeper, basically.
No gatekeeper. And the fact that, all these really random trends, and, it's not just about kind of a really curated hashtag challenge anymore. It's just these really obscure, weird and wonderful things that are actually really moving the dial, which nobody can predict. And that's kind of like, as a working in a label, it's scary, but it's also exciting.
I've got a bit of a prediction with this. So I don't know if you've seen, but do you know Donut Time? So they sell donuts, and what they've done,
yeah. So I
they've
thought
got
this
a
was some
TikTok
kind of
account.
trend that I didn't
It's
know
not,
about.
'cause you wouldn't know.
Right,
No.
okay.
So they on TikTok, they've got a huge account, and to grow their account, they actually hired a TikTok influencer and put her in the content. And I'll be really interested to see if potentially labels or artists start taking influencers and just putting them in their content. Maybe labels hire influencers to help them come up with like trends, because the people on the app know better than anyone else. You can be the
100%.
best marketer in the world, but you still don't quite get it, because you're not the 15-year-old girl that's the consumer. So that's kind of something that I think potentially, because Donut Time did it very well. If you see that their following's just grown massively, because she is the forefront of it. She is the person that...
Who is she?
She is the TikTok creator herself.
What's her
Hannah Thorough, I'm going to say.
Okay.
You recognise her probably because she used to dance in Tesco's a lot. That was her trend.
Okay.
And that's how she blew up. And they just hired her.
Tesco's.
Did she? Okay. She wasn't just going there.
No, she just worked there and started dancing and started filming it, and then they've hired her. So it'd be interesting to see if artists sort of, or labels, see this and think, you know what, they know better than us in some way.
I mean, I think that is already a thing.
Yeah.
Well, in many ways. I mean, if you think about like Jason Derulo, for example, I mean, he kind of, through lockdown, and maybe before, he was like the king of TikTok, wasn't he? And again, his career, he'd obviously, he'd had huge hits. His career was kind of, stalling for a while, but he then was using TikTok in a way that a lot of other artists didn't want to, because they were like, I'm not an influencer, I'm an artist. But he just totally lent into it, embraced it. And I think he very much kind of connected those worlds. He worked a lot with influencer and creators on the platform in a very kind of contrived but clever way, because he was really leaning into all the, you know, the trends that weren't necessarily linked to his music, built up this audience, and then when he did start to kind of create content and start trends around his own music, it then absolutely flew. So like, I think he did it really well, but it's not something that everybody can replicate.
Was Jason Derulo big when he did that, or was that like a revival thing?
It was a revival. Yeah, it was a revival. What was that? Because Savage Love with John, I can't remember the art, but Savage Love, that track was born out of TikTok, because the artist that was on it was like Josh, I can't remember the rest of his name, it's like numbers, Josh 4-6 some.
We'll put it on the screen. We'll find out afterwards, and we'll put it on the screen.
Audio guys basically helping us out with this.
Yeah, he's going to come on the podcast.
I'll learn sign language behind the
Turns
window.
out he's an expert.
Like my eyes, I can't see what he's saying. But yeah, Josh something. But that was born out of a TikTok remix, and that it was a #1 hit. And I mean, that was, I think that was kind of the first of many of those that then came, when these TikTok remixes that were created for TikTok only then became mainstream streaming hits. So
Do you think it's possible to, like, as a marketer, direct the artist in that way, though? Because it's so much based about personality now. You can't, like, write too much of a strategy for them, because you can't force their brand, you can't force their personality. Are you finding that it's down to the artist quite a lot of the time?
I think it has to be. I mean, there are a lot of artists that are, like, you know, really open to suggestions, and they're open to collaborations, but others, they're quite protective of their craft, particularly when it comes to music. You know, if it was like, oh, we've heard this amazing remix that this random user on TikTok's done, why don't you release it? They'd be like, hang on a minute, I haven't had anything to do with this. But that's, I guess, one side of things. But others are a lot like, this is amazing, like, I'm going to go with this. So I think it really depends on the artist and their craft, and, you know, whether it's, you know, if they're you know, leading into a big album campaign, which, you know, would be a lot more structured, and there'd be clear timelines that they're working to, or whether it was, you know, they could be a bit more dynamic and like, wow, this remix is popping off on TikTok, let's just release it. But it feels like artists are starting to become a bit more dynamic, because they're starting to understand how the platform works, and also that it's quite a quick churn. It's like, if you don't jump on it, you know, you've got a couple of weeks to jump on this, maybe less. And if you don't, you'll miss the window, because there'll be another trend and another track that starts to bubble up to the surface. So it's like get on this now, or it will be gone in 2 weeks.
What percentage of your time is effort put into getting the track to go viral on TikTok and getting a trend going, or actually getting the artists themselves and their content? Do you prioritize one over the other?
I mean, I think we have to prioritize both. But something I always say, and I think, not to kind of blow the horn of our label, but something that we think is really important is that you know, we all spend a lot of money on influencer campaigns, because they're really important. You know, the same way that paid media is important, and, you know, music videos are important. It is equally as important now. However, I think it's really important that we don't just focus on that, is that we make our artists the influencers on the platform. It's like, if let's say we've got £100,000, I think you should be focusing just as much on how you're going to build your artist on that platform to have a genuine, engaged fan base, as much as you would for paying for influencers to use that artist track. Because I guess what's going to have the longevity for that artist, it's having fans on the platform that are genuinely engaged. They follow because they're interested, because your artist is creating great content. And that actually may not need budget. It may not actually be a kind of a monetary transaction, but it could be about just really supporting that artist in allowing them the opportunity and the tools to be able to create that content. I think Ashaniko is a really good example of that.
And she's big on TikTok and Instagram, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember what her followers are, but
she's
huge numbers.
I think she's got about 5 million on TikTok and approaching 2 million on Instagram. So she's got such a rabid fan base, and she's still, I guess you could still kind of call her a developing artist. She's been at it for a long time, but then a lot of developing artists still have. You know, they've been grinding and grafting for a long time. But, you know, TikTok has really been, and while she's not a TikTok artist, because she's doing her thing long before TikTok, something about her, the way she visually looks, she's got blue hair, she looks like an anime character, and she's really bold. She unashamedly shares her opinion. She's very kind of, feminism, you know, nothing is off limits. And I guess that's really what that audience like. She says exactly what she
says
thinks.
things that shock you as well. I've
Yeah,
noticed, like
100%.
things that you don't normally see from artists. But like even if it's like sexual content and things like that, I've seen her make posts about that where, and it did make her stand out, and you kind of remember her and kind of invest in the brand.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I have linked you to Ashnika as well.
Probably.
Yeah. You might have heard some of her tracks on TikTok because, like 2 years ago, she had a track which had been out for a while. And then that absolutely blew up. It was called Stupid Boy. That blew up on TikTok. And then more recently, this summer, a track called Daisy absolutely exploded on TikTok. And then now another track called Slumber Party is really taking off. And yeah, and she has really kind of fostered her audience on that platform. So she hasn't just kind of let it be like a viral moment and said, cool, that's, thanks TikTok, you've done it, you've done that for me. But she's really lent into the platform, and she's become an influencer on the platform in her own right, whilst also, having real artist integrity. But she feels kind of like, she's almost like the perfect Gen Z artist that just really works on that platform, but is also making incredible music. So it just
and
just
it's also
works.
got an audience outside of the platform.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people struggle with. You can see a lot of influencers with like millions of followers. You go across to their Instagram and it's just really not performing well. I think that as a platform, that's the only thing about the platform which is a bit of a con.
Yeah.
There, because if you look at, say, YouTube, if they have an audience and they go across to Instagram, they're usually quite similar numbers.
Yeah.
But with TikTok, it's quite hard to get people off the platform because you're just scrolling.
Yeah.
Have you found ads good for that potentially? Because that's where people can click off and go to another platform.
Yeah, I mean, the ads are, as we were kind of talking about earlier, they're definitely getting better. But again, I think it's all part of how you approach it, because we've had other artists. There's, again, I'm not sure if you know him, but there's a guy called Sam Ryder. He's huge. He was the biggest music artist on TikTok in 2020, and he signed to us. But he started on TikTok in lockdown and grew his audience from a couple of hundred to over 8 million followers. But he has managed to cross that over to Instagram as well. He's got over 2 million followers there. And it was just, I think he was creating as much engaging content on TikTok as he was on Instagram. And it wasn't just like, oh, by the way, go and follow me on Instagram. For that, like he genuinely kind of managed to, I guess, capture audiences on multiple platforms by kind of, I guess, putting as much importance into knowing that maybe TikTok was the one that was driving it, but also not kind of neglecting other platforms and thinking that you can just kind of rest on your laurels and be a TikTok star. Because you're right, I think a lot of people, it is a bubble, isn't it? It's like you're TikTok famous and have absolutely no impact or kind of touch point anywhere else. So yeah, it's a funny, interesting world.
I feel like we've spoken a lot about trends from the artist perspective, like their content creation. What about from a marketing perspective? You spoke about influencer marketing.
Yeah.
What are some other current trends you're seeing on the marketing side? Is it social media advertising or?
Well, I think the really like the trend that I'm really interested in, I have been for a while, and it's a trend that kind of, it keeps bubbling up in kind of little ways, but I think it's going to become bigger and bigger kind of as years progress, is these closed spaces, like enclosed fan driven spaces like Discord. Basically, like, I think there's a big trend that's moving toward these kind of encrypted private spaces where fans can have dialogue without it needing to kind of be something that becomes a competition about, showing off or the amount of followers. It's kind of closed spaces where people can have conversations and create and share content that they know is going to be kind of safe in these kind of end-to-end encrypted spaces. So I think Discord is a really interesting example, and that's becoming bigger and bigger. And Discord is basically, it started off as a gaming platform and now it's becoming, these kind of these fan servers essentially.
I'm not seeing many artists do that at all. I can totally imagine it, because I mean subreddits are huge for it as well, especially with YouTubers. But it's not as a private space, so I can definitely see that. A lot of them are creating like close friends on Instagram stories or private accounts, but Discord could be one that's great, because if you look back from like even the beginning of music and fan bases and like fan cults, basically they just wanted to all have that like merch that's matching. They all wanted to go to gigs and communicate, and now that's less so because of social media. So that would be really interesting to see.
It feels like it's kind of moving backwards in a way, because it's very like DIY. It's like, servers. It's kind of born out of the gaming space. It's conversations. But I think it's really interesting because it's driven by fans. they're not doing it for clout. They're doing, and it's as I said, it's not about who's got the most followers or who's been, who's closer to the artist or whatever. It's about genuine fans wanting to have genuine conversations. And there's really interesting, within the kind of the Discord spaces, live opportunities, video, gaming. Obviously, artists can really lean into it. I think artists like Blackpink are really kind of using it. I think Disclosure kind of really lent into it for their last album campaign. There's some of the some of these really big kind of chill hop YouTube accounts,
kind of artists,
like Lo-Fi Girl and Chilled Cow. They're really big in those spaces as well, because see those YouTube live streams. I don't know if you ever watched. I love them. I love, like, when I'm working, I love listening to the live streams. But you see that the chat is constantly popping off. It's just like constantly people just saying, I'm here. Who's like, it's just people just enjoying the space and the community that has been built around these kind of lo-fi, like, endless live streams, and moving that into Discord. It really works for people that are engaged. And I think it deepens the engagement with a brand or an artist that you're really interested in. So I think that's really interesting. But I think that whole kind of closed space, you're seeing it in other areas like Clubhouse. That's kind of another example of that, because again, it's groups, like it's closed off groups with kind of voice broadcasting basically.
Stereo as well. Did you see Stereo was quite big for a while?
Oh, I didn't know.
Oh, so it was basically an app. They started it with a lot of influencers on YouTube, and they basically got an app which would just allow you to listen to live conversations.
Okay.
And you could press a button and they would allow you to speak into it. So say you had your favorite YouTuber, they were talking about a certain topic, you'd click it and you'd speak and ask a question. And they grew the app initially by just paying a load of influencers to go on it and do exclusive conversations. And I can see it working really well for artists as well, because people want to have that exclusive group, like you said, and also access to their favorite artists. Because so many people forget to keep their existing audience engaged. They're so focused on growing the audience, but like, what about the existing?
Exactly. And I think that in that instance, it's okay to kind of siphon off audiences. Like you can do Discord for your, a smaller group of really engaged fans, and then, and kind of, I guess, filter more people into that as they go down the kind of the fan engagement funnel, essentially. You've got Instagram for kind of another purpose. You've got, different platforms for kind of different levels of fan engagement, and for audience growth. So I think those closed space, those kind of end-to-end encrypted services are interesting. And I think even this probably sounds a bit ridiculous, but things like OnlyFans is kind of a similar example of that, because it's taking, and whilst it's kind of it's a monetized service, that artists are making a lot of money, and it doesn't all have to be kind of, X-rated content. A lot of artists are using it as a marketing tool, because again, it brings...
It's literally in the name.
Yeah. And it brings your fans, the most engaged fans, down the funnel, because essentially, I guess, artists, they love their fans, they foster their fan base, but they're being sold an album, or they are buying tickets to a tour or merch, or streaming, and so there is always a transactional element to it. And I don't think I'd be an honest marketeer if I said that there wasn't. There always is. So it's interesting just to see how people are using different platforms and services to kind of siphon off these different levels of engaged fans. And I think, like, the reason I'm so interested in it is because I've always been really interested in WeChat, the Chinese kind of messaging service, which is basically the super app, which has everything in it. It's got your food delivery service, it's got your streaming service, it's got your live video service, it's got your payment service, everything in it. And I feel like, and it's private, it's closed off. It's you're within the app and you stay within the app. And I feel like that's kind of the way that kind of marketing and kind of technology and social communications is moving into these kind of closed spaces. But I think it's going to take a while till we get to the kind of the WeChat level of things. But I think these little examples of things like Discord and OnlyFans and even WhatsApp, I think it's all moving in that direction.
You mentioned monetization. Has that changed your approach to things as well? Because obviously with streaming now, you're not getting the money from a CD sale now. So the money has kind of changed where it comes from for an artist. Does that therefore change the marketing side of things, because you're trying to funnel them down a little bit deeper instead of being discovered on, say, Spotify? I
don't think it does for us. Maybe for the artist it does slightly, because obviously they have to think about their revenue stream. And I suppose that's probably something that has been hit quite hard for many artists in lockdown with COVID, particularly because of the lack of ticket sales. I think a lot of artists, for what they lack from, I guess, streaming revenues or album sales, because, everybody's streaming and they're not buying physical products anymore, they make up for in ticket sales and, in selling tickets to their tours. So I guess that it is part of our strategy in the sense that obviously we still sell albums, and we've had some great success over lockdown with artists getting number one albums, new artists as well, not just kind of heritage artists that we know already have a fan base. But that it does inform our strategy in the sense that usually part of an album kind of proposition for a fan will include a ticket or a pre-sale access to a ticket with a merch bundle, things that you would want in addition to just the music. It's kind of you're building out essentially the artist brand. You get a live experience, you get your hoodie, and you get you get maybe 5 unique tape cassette bundle plus your CD. So I think that's kind of part of maybe a strategy to ensure that kind of revenue stays strong, but we want to make sure that we're not trying to con fans. We want to give them something that they genuinely want, and I think
value.
I think particularly because of what's been happening over the past 2 years, the desire to see your artist live and in real life is stronger than ever. So it's something that they're willing to pay for. It's something that's absolutely worth it for a fan. So that's definitely part of a strategy for an album campaign, I'd say.
It's interesting how you sort of bundle the music with merchandise. Do you feel like now, like selling CDs and tapes is kind of per merch? It feels like the fans can have something physical and have it as merchandise rather than seeing it as like the album because they'll go stream it online. Do you still see that?
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a CD player?
No.
I don't. That's the thing. But that it's a much smaller part of the market, but it's still a part of the market. See, vinyl sales have absolutely exploded. But again, maybe people more have a kind of a record player, but it's still probably not something that they chuck on every day like they would a playlist on their kind of speaker at home or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely about. And I think, again, it's about the levels of fans and how deeply they engage with your artist. You want something because it's something tangible, something that you can keep. It's something that is almost like a badge of honor to show that you're a real fan. So, it's definitely, no one's playing a cassette at home, but it's very much part of a kind of a unique offering for somebody that's a real fan that wants to show that to fly their flag of honor that I'm a fan of this artist. So
and the badge of honor thing is linking back to the whole like private chat thing again. If you're in a private chat and other people aren't, you feel like you're kind of closer to the artist and you're worth more in a way.
Exactly.
But it's interesting to see.
No, totally. And that whole thing of like with the Discord, you have to be invited into a group. Same with Clubhouse at the start, you had to be invited in. Like you feel like there's something special about being in there, and that there's an added value. And I think, as again, like having a vinyl or having a CD, it feels special now because you're not just kind of chucking it on in your car. It just is something that you feel as a keepsake, and it kind of says a lot about you and your music taste and your loyalty to the artist. So I think that's really nice that we're still seeing fans kind of want to kind of engage on that level. So.
We've also spoke a lot about the organic side of things. Do you do much in terms of paid ads? Are they still good for you for promoting artists? Because I know a lot of our audience still are running YouTube ads, Instagram ads. We spoke a little bit about TikTok ads before we started. Is it still a big part of your campaigns?
Definitely. I think it always has to be, and I think it will always be a part of our strategy for audience awareness, audience growth as well. I think we couldn't kind of rule that out in its entirety. There's always I think one thing with kind of paid advertising, often to actually, particularly with music, it's because obviously now physical sales and downloads are kind of becoming more and more rare, and so I guess for us the tangible thing off the back of running a paid media campaign would be views or streams. It's much harder to kind of I guess equate and kind of see what value you're really getting. But also it's a bit like running an paid influencer campaign, often the same. It's something that it's harder to kind of put an exact monetary value on. You can to an extent, but it definitely has to be part of the mix because I think there's so many kind of interesting platforms now. Like we started kind of running more advertising in the gaming space because again, there's such a kind of an engaged, growing audience on, whether it's mobile games or even, like whether it's, the Fortnites or the kind of the Candy Crushers or whatever. There are a lot more opportunities to target users of kind of specific games. There's a lot more rich information about the users of those games, and I think it's an interesting space, and I think there's still a lot more that's going to be kind of coming and a lot more opportunities. So definitely not something that we'd be ruling out as part of the strategy. I think it's always kind of is part of the mix.
I think what makes it hard for a lot of artists is say they have a couple of £100 to play around with. The cost per click is never going to be cheaper than the stream.
Yeah.
So they don't see the return on investment really worth it. However, like you said, a lot of times for awareness.
Yeah.
But the gaming one could be interesting because quite often you have sound on.
Yeah.
And Instagram, a lot of the time, unless you're on stories, you most probably won't have the sound on. I think that's what a lot of artists get frustrated with because you obviously want to sell your music. And without the sound on, it's quite hard. You have to be quite creative with it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, the gaming space is really interesting. We've been working with recently with a company called Audio Mob. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're quite interesting. They kind of specialise in mobile gaming. And like I'm not personally a mobile gamer. I don't play like Solitaire or Candy Crush, but I know it's huge. Do you?
No, I don't myself.
Yeah, but it's such a massive space, and apparently it's quite female heavy, and it's quite interesting just the segmentation of the different games for the different audiences. They have so much information, so you can really target your ads to. I want, if it's a dance record, I want males between the age of 18 and 24, and it's like, okay, well, this is the game that it's 60% males of this age demographic in this location. It's like, great, why would we not be trying that when you can get that much kind of rich information about the audience that you're targeting? So yeah, it's always a bit of an experiment, but something that we kind of continue to learn more about, and also the kind of the audio ads is obviously quite a big space for us too. So we run audio ads, on platforms, on Spotify. There's a company that we've been working with recently, which is quite interesting, called 1 Million, and they create audio ads which are basically kind of dynamic, and they change depending on number of different variables, day of the week, weather, like a big moment in time, I don't know, kind of a big sporting event, say it was the World Cup, like you can adapt the audio that somebody receives, the ad that they hear, depending on kind of, I guess, where they are in the world, what's happening in the world, the time of the day. I think it's quite interesting, being able to kind of really be dynamic and target with your ads, as opposed to just having one generic audio ad, stream this song now on Spotify or whatever.
I always think personalised ads are the best, and that's why YouTube ads will always be a lot stronger, because obviously you can run ads on what people have searched. And I think that's something that Facebook and Instagram are always going to struggle with, because the data you've got is pretty simple. So I think, we love YouTube ads. We found them to be very effective. But ads in the gaming space sound great.
Can you run ads on Twitch? I've never researched it.
Yeah, because that's what I thought you were going to talk about when you said gaming. I was like, because a lot of people love Twitch space, especially because a lot of them have playlists playing in the background.
Yeah. We haven't done as much with Twitch. We have done some kind of more influencer activity with Twitch, some kind of, some of the big gamers. And we've recently, we premiered a Coldplay remix in a Twitch game with a big gamer, which is quite interesting.
So
it was really, really good. Yeah, I mean, it was great for awareness. The remix, the artist that did the remix, it was right for the audience. It was right for the gamers kind of demographic. Yeah, it was something that we tried, and we hadn't done it before, but it's definitely kind of there's a lot to explore in that space. But Twitch is an interesting one, because they're still kind of, it's not fully, we don't have basically kind of publishing rights with them, so there's still like something that's slightly, we can't kind of go fully in with Twitch, even though it's owned by Amazon. It's still kind of not fully covered, so we don't always get paid for the music that gets used in there. So whilst it's definitely like, the audiences are huge, sometimes it's still not kind of fully, so we have to be a little bit kind of careful about how much we can do, but it's such an interesting space, and there's so much we can do. So I think we'll kind of keep moving towards that. I mean, it's a total missed opportunity if there isn't kind of the the marriage of music and artists in that space. So
Cool. I think that's a good place to end it.
Cool.
There were so many unique topics spoken about in this one podcast. It was so much. But thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you online? On Instagram, on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Same handle. It's Anya CD. That's me.
We'll put it in the description as well.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you enjoyed the podcast, make sure to give it a like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.